A lot of the code on a page never runs. Visual coverage and DevTools shows how much of your JavaScript and CSS is actually used and where performance might be wasted. In this video, I'll show you 9 Chrome DevTools features that really speed up a front-end developer's work. We'll also look at local overrides. It lets you change files locally without touching the project's source code. You'll see how the grid and flexbox editor lets you tweak layouts visually, right in the browser. And at the end, you'll see how visual coverage reveals which JavaScript and CSS are actually used on the page. Let's start with design mode. It's a browser mode that lets you edit text right on the page without changing the source code. Just run this in the console. Document.design mode equals on. The page becomes editable. You can change headings or remove extra lines. It's great for pixel perfect checks when you need to quickly fix text wrapping or spacing without touching the HTML. But sometimes it's not about the content, it's about how the UI behaves. That's where Emulate Focus helps. It lets you force and keep focus on an element. When you work with UI, you often need to inspect focus or active states. But the moment you click away, this state is gone. I used to hack this with set timeout. I'd add a 3-second delay, drop a debugger, and rush to open the right element. It was awkward and unstable. Now it's much simpler. In DevTools, you can force the focus state and calmly inspect styles without losing context. In other cases, it's not about styles. You need real values at runtime. Let's move on to live expression. Imagine you need to track an element's text content. In the console, you get the current value, but when the value changes in the UI, you have to run the command again and check it again. That's annoying when data updates in real time. Live expression fixes this. You add the expression to the panel, and DevTools starts tracking it automatically. Now, text content updates in real time. No need to rerun anything in the console. This tool is especially useful when you're hunting flaky bugs. For example, when focus suddenly disappears and you don't know which element is active right now. Live expression lets you track document.element all the time. No manual checks, something with dark mode. Sometimes a class is added or removed dynamically and the UI starts acting weird. Document body class list contains dark, shows the current state instantly, or models. They should close, but they stay in the DOM. With document query selector model, you can immediately see if the element still exists. All values update automatically. That makes debugging dynamic UI much easier. Live expression helps you track values in real time. But what if you need to run the same code again and again? That's when snippets become useful. Snippets in DevTools let you save and run your own JavaScript in the browser. Unlike the console, this code stays with you. You can reuse it anytime. It's great when you do the same thing over and over. For example, clearing local storage, forcing a theme switch, adding helper classes, or logging debug info. Snippets really shine when you test UI. You can quickly change the page state without touching the project code. Write the script once, run it whenever you need. Sometimes running code is not enough. You need to change the loaded file. Local overrides let you change loaded page resources and save those changes locally. You edit CSS or JavaScript in DevTools and the browser uses your version instead of the original file. This is handy when you don't have access to the repo, or when you want to test an idea quickly without a deploy. It's especially useful in large projects. For example, you can replace the URL of a micro frontend and test it a local version inside an already deployed environment. This way you can test the integration without touching the main build or creating temporary branches. We are done with file overrides. Now let's move on to screenshots and the command palette. You can open the command palette with Ctrl or Command plus Shift plus P It gives you access to all DevTools commands. It's a fast way to switch panels and run tools. You can also take screenshots from there, the whole page or a specific element, right from the browser. The next step is controlling how the page is rendered. That's where the rendering panel helps. Rendering behavior gives you extra control over how a page is rendered. You can turn on paint flashing and see which part of the page are redrawn when you interact with the UI. You can also check how the page behaves with the GPU disabled or with a different pixel density. There are more options to emulate different rendering conditions. They help you better understand performance and UI behavior. This is not a tool you use every day, but it's very useful when you want to go deeper and see how the browser actually renders a page. Now, let's move from rendering to layout. The Grid and Flexbox editor lets you adjust the layout visually right in DevTools. If an element uses Flex or Grid, you can turn on visual controls and a grid overlay in the layout panel. I can change Flex direction, alignment, and spacing and see the result instantly on the page. Same with Grid. I can control columns, rows, and areas without editing CSS by hand. This is especially helpful for complex layouts. I used to rely on the visual grid when things got crowded, and it was hard to understand how tracks and gaps were really distributed. DevTools show the real grid that makes decisions faster. Now, let's go deeper, down to the code execution. Visual coverage shows what actually runs from the code you load. Visual coverage in DevTools shows which part of your JavaScript and CSS are actually used on a page. Once you start it, the tool tracks code execution and highlights unused code. You instantly see the coverage percentage and the exact line that never ran. This is especially useful for performance work. You can spot extra styles, unused modules, or code that loads but never runs. Visual coverage helps you make decisions based on real data, not guesses, and on large projects with lots of CSS and JavaScript, and gives you a very clear picture of how the code is really used.